Giving his talk titled Communicating Through Music, here is Ryan Schildkraut.
Ever since I was a little kid, I've been listening to music. My parents made me. I've been listening in the car, in my house, wherever I was, it didn't matter. They always had music on, and they were always singing with me, and they were always dancing, and they were always showing me all the different types of music that there were, and all different kinds of things that I could learn from it. And as I've grown older, I still listen to music, and I still listen to a lot of music, and a lot of different kinds of music. And what I've realized is that music brings people together. Music is understood by everyone. Now that's a bold statement, music is understood by everyone. But I can prove this with two things. I can say that everyone likes a certain kind of music. Music is played everywhere. It's played on the radio, it's played in shopping malls, it's played at sporting events, it doesn't matter. Everyone listens to it, and everyone finds some sort of emotional connection to it. The second way is that everyone really, truly does understand music, and we can prove this with a simple task. Now, I'm going to ask for some audience participation here. I'm going to need you to sing something. I'm going to need you to finish a musical phrase for me. So I'm going to play something on the piano. It'll be a really, really short musical phrase, so be prepared. But when I point to you, you will finish it. Ready? And you see, everyone knows this, and everyone is able to do this. Why? Because everyone has this natural connection to music, even if you don't know it. Now, this past year, I went to go see a movie with my younger brother. We went to go see the movie Whiplash, which is about a music student who goes to college and wants to study jazz and become a percussion major. And when he gets there, his professor is unbelievably mean to him. And his professor would do things like throw stuff at him or repeatedly tell him what he's doing wrong without giving any explanation as to why it was wrong or why it was important that he did it another way. In my opinion, music is like a language. Music is something that can communicate ideas to groups of people or to individuals or between musicians. It doesn't matter. Music is a form of communication. And in order to understand a language and to understand how it works, you have to understand how it's made and what goes behind it and why those things are important. And yelling at a student to play your tempo or play the right notes doesn't mean anything because a student doesn't know what that means. There are three important parts of teaching a language that make it really easy to understand. The first thing is grammar. If you understand how a language is put together and how certain words or phrases make sense, then you can create your own. The second thing is vocabulary. Once you know certain words or phrases that other people have said, then you can take those words or phrases and put them into context, and you can use them to create your own meaning. And the last thing is listening. The last thing is being able to hear what someone else does or what someone else says, and being able to hear the articulation or the pronunciation behind what they're saying. So let's go back to this first thing, this grammar. In music, grammar is called music theory. And music theory explains how notes and chords and melodies and phrases are all put together to create something that people can understand. As an example, a very easy way of explaining this using one set of chords is a 2-5-1 chord progression. In a major scale, there are 8 notes. In a 2-5-1 chord progression, you play a minor 7th chord using the 2nd note of the scale, and then you play a dominant 7 chord using the 5th of the scale. And then you resolve to the tonic or the 1 of the scale. And this may not make a ton of sense, but I'm going to play it on the piano, And hopefully you will hear how this comes up in other kinds of music. So this sounds something like this. And it resolves to the one chord. And this feels good. Why does it feel good? Why do you know when it gets to the one chord? Because this is something that humans naturally understand, and music theory puts this together to make it easy for us to understand. If I was to say, play a 2-5-1 chord progression and play it my way, it would have no meaning. But because someone can understand it, and it's important to the music, it gives it meaning. The second thing is vocabulary. And vocabulary is extremely important because a lot of people have said a lot of really great things. And there have been a lot of great speakers who have said really, really important things that make an impact on the listener. It's the same thing in music. There are lots of musicians who have played things that many other people have played, but they did it first. And then everyone can use what they've done and they can expand upon it. And they can make it their own. Vocabulary can be something as simple as saying hello when you are talking to your friend. One way that a musician would say hello is by starting a song with a dominant 7 chord and then resolving it to the 1 to start the song. And that would be the start of my song. And then after that, I would ask questions like, how are you? What are you doing today? And I would have a conversation, and musicians communicate with each other, and they communicate with their audience using these vocabulary terms. And sometimes you need to end a song. Sometimes you need to say goodbye. And in music, there are an infinite number of ways to say this, as there are to say hello. But one example of this, something that many people have done before, is this. Why does that sound like an ending to a piece? Because others have done it before, and humans create the connection between that phrase and the end. The last thing that goes into music education, or to language education in general, is listening. Being able to pick out the articulations and the pronunciations of different words or notes or phrases is essential to learning what music is all about. Once you can hear how someone pronounces a word in a certain language, you are then able to pronounce that word. And then you are able to sound like them. Or maybe in music, you learn to play that phrase exactly how someone else played it. But then, because you know all this vocabulary, you can make it your own. So, rather than using anger and frustration to teach music, and repeating the same words and phrases over and over, expecting that someone knows what you mean, we should look at where it comes from. We should look at what it's made up of. We should look at the grammar behind it. We should look at what other people have done and how they've done it, the vocabulary and listening aspects. And then we can figure out what sounds good and what kind of music we want to create. And this can apply to anything. This can apply to any field of study. Once you realize where something comes from, you can expand upon it. And you can create new music that speaks to the world. Thank you.